Shall I just start the show? Hey, welcome to the James Show. I'm your host, James Parker. It happens. Oh, this is so terrible. We have a new guy training on the board in the first second of the first show where he's training. He messed it up. So give him a little grace. Another round of applause for the guy trying to get Garrett a day off. It happened. I told him, don't worry. Something goes wrong. It happens all the time. Well, 4 seconds later, dead air. Good start. So welcome to the James Show. I'm your host, James Parker, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. The Tesla hissy fits continued over the weekend, and there were some big ones that were here in town. And when I say big, I think more people showed up at this South Lake Tesla than at the James Show meetup last Tuesday. So you might hear a little bit of jealousy here. I know we're not as well funded and organized. We didn't get any of that Soros money. we don't have a bunch of Reddit groups trying to throw it together. But Carlos Tercios, isn't he with, not Texas Scorecard, what's the other one? Dallas Express. He was up there getting some video of these fine people protesting the Tesla dealership just up the road here in South Lake. And he noticed at 12 o'clock, it was almost like a bell went off. At high noon, a bunch of people just put their signs down and started walking off like it was scheduled. Yeah, so we're going to be there from 9 until noon. And a lot of people found that suspicious. So he took the video and he put it online. It's like, look, it's almost as if like their shift is over, or, like the workday is closed, or like the store is closed, or like the game is over. And I'll be damned, there were other people from other towns at other Tesla dealerships who said they saw the same thing. A bunch of people just walked off at noon. And look, I'm not saying everyone that went to a Tesla protest is paid. I'm sure most of them are not. But this does betray some level of organization. And somewhere, someone in the hierarchy, someone's getting paid. Because you don't just magically have 12 different protests all start and end at the same time. And then there were other things that were showing up. If you were not perennially online like I was this weekend, some people were getting pictures of scripts that the chanters were using. Like, how do they all know the same chants? How do they all know that song? How do they all know what's coming next? Well, a lot of them had a script. We'll compare and contrast that with different places. Did they all have the same script? Did they all have different scripts? It's kind of weird that more than one place had a script at all. But I think the real lesson here from the Tesla hissy fits are really just the prime example that you've had in your entire life of how biased and really just dishonest the media is on a daily basis. And I don't just say that to complain. Media's bad. But the hypothesis here, I think the lesson learned is that if the media was honest, this country would change dramatically. Because what makes this Tesla situation, and really Elon Musk by proxy, but what makes this such a key social experiment is that both Elon Musk and Tesla have been perceived to be on Team Blue for their entire public life until what, like 2-3 years ago, whenever he bought Twitter? When Elon was on Team Blue, there wasn't angry Republicans setting Teslas on fire, vandalizing them, burning down charging stations, crowding dealerships, flooding them with protesters, forcing them to shut down and not do business on the weekend. That just didn't happen. Because I hear people making the connection. Well, look, when the Team Red people were protesting Bud Light, they didn't go damage other people's Bud Lights or set trucks on fire. We don't even have to come up with a metaphor or a simile. We have Tesla being perceived as both Team Blue and Team Red. When were they being set on fire? Exactly. More anti-Tesla terrorism happened this weekend by Team Blue than by their entire existence by Team Red. Now, how is that an indictment of the media? Well, because all of these vandals that are doing all these things, all the scratchers, all the flooders, all the protesters, all the spray painters, all the arsonists, they were around when the media was telling them Elon was good, Tesla was good. But now these same people are whipped into a tornado of hate. And Elon didn't change. Tesla didn't change. The media coverage of him changed. So before Elon supported Trump and spoke out against wokeism, was he frequently called a Nazi? Now, look, I'm sure, let me be a little deferential here. I'm sure there's below average intelligence people on Team Red and Team Blue. I'm pretty sure there's plenty of people on both sides that aren't the sharpest of critical thinkers and have a tendency to believe whatever they see on TV or their preferred media. The difference is, though, we, and by we I mean, Team Red media like Fox News or Talk Radio or The James Show, we didn't tell our audiences that Elon was a Nazi when he was our perceived political opposition. Now, enough with the deference. Give yourself credit. Team Red followers, certainly more civilized than Team Blue. Less violence, less fires, less property damage. But the question we need to ask ourselves is, what would the landscape look like if Team Blue media was honest? Because if they were honest, would there be Tesla fires on cars and dealerships and charging stations right now? If the media is honest, you got to think no. You got to think there wouldn't be as many protests, period. There wouldn't be all these protests about deportations. There wouldn't be all these protests about Israel. I'm not saying there wouldn't be any, but it would be significantly smaller. All these people that weren't whipped up before that are now whipped up, they wouldn't be whipped up. There probably wouldn't even be a noticeable Antifa, if any. But if the media was honest, here's the other thing. They would be condemning all the domestic terrorism that happened this weekend. Dare I say systemic terrorism? They would be tracking down and doxing the people who organized these domestic terror attacks. They would be condemning them as anti-American, anti-free speech, anti-Western civilization, barbarians. And they would be demanding that law enforcement pursue the organizers of these events for funding terrorist activities, because that's exactly what they did. Remember how there have been groups all over the country, especially since 9/11, who've caught charges right in the face for funding terrorism? Holy Land or whomever else. These people who organized what happened this weekend, a lot of them deserve to be treated no different. What do you think? 800-288-9227. Coming up next, we're going to ask the James Show legal eagle, Jeremy Rosenthal. You'll hear his take on my terrorism charges angle. And then also, I'm going to ask him about this idea, this also theory, that Trump could be president for a third term. So, should these Tesla protest organizers catch terrorism charges? And would you support Trump for a third term? 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. This is The James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome back to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Let's stop in and have a chat with the legal eagle on the James Show. It's the great Jeremy Rosenthal, TexasDefenseFirm.com. Welcome back, sir.
James, how are you?
Well, I got a couple of legal questions for you, my lawyer. So let's start off with the Tesla hissy fits that were happening over the weekend. And I say hissy fits because I don't want to be sensational. I don't want to be hyperbolic. I don't want to say it was Tesla domestic terrorism. But in some of these instances, it really does meet the definition of terrorism, where it's an act of intimidation or violence to further a political cause, usually on civilian targets. So my question for you, though, is legally speaking, does this count as domestic terrorism? Because if so, then the organizers, wouldn't they be funding domestic terrorism, or can't they catch some sort of terrorism charges? I really don't know. So I'm just kind of asking a very vague setup for you there, Jeremy.
That's okay. The legal system is designed to take that which is vague and make it even more vague and unintelligible. So, yeah, look, and you kind of already have hit the nail on the head. I mean, let's look at the degree and scope of what domestic terrorism is or is not. And in terms of Tesla, right, if you're attacking infrastructure, if you're inciting some kind of greater political fear, then I think there's a really good argument that that's terrorism. And it also, of course, goes hand in hand with what's the damage that is done, right? Spitting on a car, keying on a car. I don't know a whole lot of people that are going to be in support of charging that with domestic terrorism.
Myself included. Exactly. And that's kind of why right. I am vague about this. And I'm not calling it the Tesla terror attacks. It's more of just a hissy fit because, yeah, a spit means nothing. But setting a charging station on fire or a whole row of Teslas on fire, I just don't know where to legally draw that boundary. How do you send those guys on up the river on terrorism charges without catching these little guys?
Well, I mean, it is. We've talked, I think, in the past about the definition of obscenity, Miller versus California. Yes, you know it when you see it. It's a judgment call because a lot of these things could legally meet the definition of terrorism, but you're right. At some point, it just makes no sense. Now, if we're organizing a massive cyber attack against Tesla computers, if we're organizing something that's even greater, then yes. And even if you were a passive participant, right, if you're helping organize or fund or do something like that, I mean, if the shoe fits, then yes, I think you're right.
Well, we have also, you don't even have to participate in the activity for you to get rolled up on some charges for funding or supporting or aiding and abetting. There's some laws against, terrorism from that angle as well. We've even seen some institutions here in the DFW area catch charges on that, although I'm not really 100% on how it turned out, so I don't want to say any names, but is there some connection there, like for funding or supporting terrorism?
I mean, you got to link it, and you got to show the math. That's going to be the challenge with anything like that. And I mean, the downstream folks who are committing the acts, and the upstream folks who may, if there's any dollars that are connecting that, you got to show a little bit more than just, well, this is where the money came from, right? You got to show that there was a little knowledge, and that's where I think a lot of these things die. Although in theory, again, I think you're right.
Okay, so my next legal question for you, Jeremy Rosenthal, TexasDefenseFirm.com. I don't know if you probably heard about this because you're in a lawyer circle right now. The idea that Trump could do a third term, now, because the loophole supposedly is the amendment to the Constitution says you can't get elected to more than 2 terms. But if he ran as J.D. Vance's VP in 2028, J.D. Vance wins, steps down. Could Trump really get a third term?
Okay, so talking theory, right? I mean, the big question is this what everybody wants? But it's fun to kind of map this out and to chart this out, at least from a legal standpoint. The short answer is it is extremely hard to think that he could legally pull off a third term. Again, whether people want that or not is another story. The 12th Amendment, actually, James, says that if you are ineligible to run for president, you cannot run for vice president. So he could not be J.D. Vance's running mate.
Okay.
What would and kind of when I was looking at this problem over the weekend and kind of Xing and Oing it, the only way that I conceivably can see that this could happen. So no person can be elected more than twice. Period. Stop. End of story. Doesn't say consecutively. So Trump is ineligible to be elected again as president of the United States. He would have to, I think, be something like the Speaker of the House, and then which means you got to win the House.
Oh, and then they both step down like in House of Cards.
And then you need two people, right? And the only two people in the world that I could see doing that for you, for anybody, are Donald and are Don Jr. and Eric. Okay,
you're the first person I heard say that. You're the first person I heard bring up the Speaker of the House loophole. There you go.
Well, and I don't think and guess who else is going to run for it if you try that?
Barack Obama. Yeah, why don't we
right?
just?
Yeah.
Hey, if one side's going to burn down the Constitution, might as well have both sides doing it.
You know what? Let's just go for this. So, you know what? Stranger things have happened. But listen, I mean, what happens too is power is a very, very difficult thing to give up. And even if JD Vance tells you to your face, I'm going to step down the minute I take office. I mean, even then, you know, he
will he? Yeah.
At the same point, he's going to be like, you know, everybody kind of is laughing at my jokes. I kind of like this. I'm kind of actually digging this, and you know what? I'm thinking I'm going to keep it. You know, so I think any legal way that Trump has got to a third term is extraordinarily tenuous and is something of theory and fun to kind of map out, but I don't see it happening. Yeah.
Here's where my screwball brain, it's powerful. It's just unrefined. I am thinking of the Texas example. Are you familiar with the story of Ma and Pa Ferguson? Pa Ferguson was governor of, you probably know, let me explain to everyone else. Pa Ferguson was governor of Texas a little over 100 years ago. He got caught up in some corruption scandals, and so he got charged with some crimes and convicted and kicked out of office. And so he wasn't allowed to run for office again. So his wife ran for office, Ma and Pa Ferguson. She actually won the election, and then they had the old wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You got two governors for the price of one deal, which means, Jeremy, could Melania do the same thing?
I don't know that she was born in the U.S. So
that's right.
So.
Yeah. All right.
Man, you're you know, but you know what, man, you're
trying.
You're thinking, you know, your brain is on here with this. And,
I'm just wrong. Yeah. You're smart. You're just wrong, Parker. Thank you very much, Jeremy, for being polite about that.
I hadn't thought of Paul Ferguson. I hadn't thought of them. But yeah.
All right. TexasDefenseFirm.com. What y'all got going on up there?
Man, I'm out of the office today. You know, I was not able to accomplish many things growing up. So what I do is I kind of make my children do it, sort of to fulfill that need. So I'm at a golf tournament for my daughter today, where she will achieve my goals that I could never do because I'm thoroughly inadequate. And I've heard that can be bad parenting and backfire on parents. But
yeah, what I'm doing the same thing, and it's fun in the meantime. It might backfire, but therapy's cheap. Thank you, Jeremy.
All right, thanks, buddy.
All right, I'm going to ask you the same thing, kind of not through the legal angle, but just you as a voter. Would you support Trump if he tried one of these? If he tried to run for a third term? If he tried to either be Speaker of the House or a J.D. Vance running mate or trying to get Melania or whatever the case is? You know, a lot of people are saying no one would ever support that. I don't know. If you're a Trump supporter, would you support Trump if he ran for a third term? 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome back to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. I'm your host, James Parker, and Trump's now floated the idea that, the third term talk has kind of begun. He's not saying he would do it, but he said there's people who are telling me there's a loophole to where I could possibly, I don't know, who knows, we'll see if it happens. But I want to ask you, if he did try this, if he did try and get in there for a third time, whether it was running as J.D. Vance's running mate so he could slide over after the election or whatever loophole he wanted to try and pull, would you still support him? Because part of the narrative that's already formulating around this is the people who just hate Trump all day, every day, like bloodthirsty monsters for a living, saying, see, this is just evidence that he wants to be a dictator and he wants to be a king and might as well just call himself Augustus Caesar after this. But look, let's go ahead and talk about this move itself. Because, of course, it violates the spirit of the law. The spirit of the law was shattered by FDR. And there wasn't really for the longest time a law. George Washington just did 2 terms, stepped down, and that was used as the model until not even 100 years ago. FDR went for 4 terms. And it was only after that when the amendment with the term limits was actually put into the Constitution. And so now it limits you. You can only be elected to 2 terms. Now, one of the cases that was, we ran it by Jeremy Rosenthal in the last segment. If you missed it, you want to go check the podcast because he said this smarter than I did. The idea that he could be J.D. Vance's running mate in 2028, and then after they win, J.D. Vance can resign and he slide over. That appears to be contravened by the 12th Amendment that says if you're not eligible to run for president, you can't be vice president as well. So maybe we can put that to bed. I was trying to bring up the idea of the Ma and Pa Ferguson switch, where it's a husband and wife proxy. But he pointed out rightfully, well, Melania is not a naturally born citizen, so that one's kind of out too. But let's say we found some sort of legal framework or some sort of loophole. I don't think you would support him. I think some people would. I don't think you would. And by you, I'm you. You're paying attention every day. You were probably listening to WBAP long before Donald Trump came around. You'll be listening to WBAP long afterwards, and you've held the same beliefs. And he is not the guy that you're voting for. You're voting for principles. He's just the tip of the spear of that movement right now. So your loyalty is not to Donald Trump. Your loyalty is to your principles. And I think most voters would agree with that on Team Red and Team Blue. So I don't even think most people would support him that support him now if he tried to run for a third term. They'd be like, listen, bro, we love you. How about we just support J.D. Vance and, I don't know, maybe you can be in his cabinet. Maybe you can be Secretary of State. Also, keep in mind the Jeremy Rosenthal idea of him becoming Speaker of the House and then sliding up 2 spots because that's third in line. But I don't think we're going to actually have to deal with this in the real world. This is just a fun conversation to have. But let's go ahead and have the conversation. If Trump was trying to get in the White House for a third term, would you support him? 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Now, it's without the theory. Let's go ahead and get the brass tacks in the real world. I really don't think he wants to. I don't think he wants to run for a third term. I bet you there's a lot of people out there who would like to see him run for a third term. There may be some truth to the fact that people are like, hey, this is how you could do it. But there's a couple of reasons why I don't think he would want to. Number one, he's probably old. He's probably tired. Let's see how much he likes it after the end of this second term. I get it. The pattern in history is that for people, once they gain really high levels of power, they have a tendency to want to hold on to it for life. And then that tendency turns around. Usually they want to pass it down to their son. But I also think he's just saying this to flip out the media. I think he's a great manipulator is probably a good word. It just sounds so negative. But he's good at controlling the media. He's good if you want to distract your dog, you go, whoa, what's that? Or you can throw a tennis ball over there and he'll go chase it. I think that's what he's doing. I think he's throwing a tennis ball so they can go track down all these constitutional experts or these academics or have all these other guys on, and they're talking about what an idiot Trump is for thinking how scary and authoritarian and pretty much Hitler it is. Meanwhile, they're not spending that time criticizing his actual job. They're not spending time criticizing his tariffs or Doge or the markets or any of this other stuff. He's throwing a tennis ball and watch these fools chase it. I bet you he enjoyed the Signal Chat story because the Signal Chat story was just a non-starter going nowhere with no victims. No laws were broken. Nothing was even really unethical. It's just some dude overheard your conversation. It's like someone heard you talking to each other behind the line at Walmart. And I bet you he loved that. And I'll tell you what was hilarious about it. This non-story with no victims and no negative consequences or effect on your life in any way whatsoever, that dominated the Sunday talk shows. Everyone had to talk about it. This is almost non-story. Someone overheard a conversation. Whoa, close the barn door, shut everything down. We've got a burner in here. But I think he's throwing the tennis ball. I think the media's chasing it. I think it's a fun conversation to have, but I'm not so sure you would support him. Let me squeeze in Steve in Weatherford. Steve, you're on WBAP. Would you support Trump in a third term?
No, sir.
Why not? Did you support him the first two?
Yes, and I've supported him 3 times now. But we need term limits from president all the way down to congressman.
So why do you think he's saying this?
To get the media over here looking at a shiny object to get away from the Signal Chat thing.
Yeah, and I wouldn't want him to get off the Signal Chat thing. You realize every second they spend talking about Trump's third term or Signal Chat, they're not talking about the actual job he's doing. They're not dislodging him from any of his supporters, or, putting any ideological ground between anyone. But so I kind of feel that way too. I don't know if he would change his mind if the polls were overwhelming and then we had a constitutional amendment that allowed a third term. I'm not even sure if he would change his mind then. But
He'll be 82, and he is fighting the biggest dragon on the face of the earth right now, at what we call deep state. There's not a bigger enemy on the face of the earth than the deep state of the U.S., and he's fighting it tooth and nail.
Yeah, and I imagine after about 12 years cumulative of this, he just wants to go play golf. I mean, I think about how tired I am, and I'm 47. Can't imagine going through what that man's gone through and still wanting to do that job again. But what do you think? 800-288-9227. You'll hear from some of your neighbors on whether or not they would support Trump on a third term. Coming up next on The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Trump has floated the idea of maybe he's open to the idea of a third term. Would you support Trump for a third term? I don't think you will. This is Phil and Melissa. You're on WBAP. What do you think about Trump and maybe attempting a third term?
Well, I don't support a third term for anybody because, Barack Obama is going to come right out and go, well, I can run for a third term. And he's not going to wait until Trump has his third term. It's going to be the boxing match of the century.
Well, half of our country, or maybe 20% of our country, their head's just going to explode if that happens. Number one, they were so pro-Obama, and they are so anti-Trump that if you mix these two together, it'd be like matter and antimatter colliding and just creating a brief black hole that we'd all sink into.
I think so.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much, Phil. I've seen a lot of that in the comments. Oh, yeah. Well, if he runs again, we're going to run Obama and he's going to get the floor wiped with him. I don't know, man. I don't know if he would lose to Obama. I don't want to see how angry these people can get. How many cars have to be set on fire? James in Flower Mound, you're on WBAP. Would you support a Trump third term?
I wouldn't. I've voted for him 3 times already. I think a fourth time would just feel weird. Not that it's even possible, but he's not going to be around forever regardless. And I think the party really needs to focus in on who's going to kind of take it from here. And I think J.D. Vance is a great option for that, but it's time to start investing in some of the future leaders of the party.
Yeah, I also wonder, why does this happen over and over through history? For other democracies or republics. Some Julius Caesar or Augustus shows up and they're like, yeah, let's just let him run the place for life. Don't the people at the time know that that's not a good thing? This is going to be the inflection point of history that's not going to be looked kindly upon by future generations.
And I think that's exactly why he won the first time, because if you remember, the front runners were going to be Jeb Bush and Hillary Clinton.
Oh, God.
And the idea of going back and forth between Clintons and Bushes, I think that made everyone disgusted, and I think that generated a lot of the support that he had because everyone was just so fed up with just those two families being involved in some way or another.
So why do you think he's saying this?
On one hand, he is his own worst enemy in many cases, and I think he just, says things a lot of times, and I don't think it's great for him. I don't like the idea of him joking about the Canada thing. I know he's kind of poking liberals, but at a certain point, the joke's, not funny anymore. You do have to move on, and we do have to get serious about who's running the show next.
Yeah, and I think the good part about your warning there is if you do make this all about Trump, then when Trump is gone, the movement dies. And what do? Just give it all back? We just recreate the Department of Education and USAID and all that. So, I hear a lot of people that are saying the same thing you are, James. Is anyone disagreeing? Thank you over in Flower Mound, other James. Does anyone disagree? Does anyone think, no, Trump, if he ran for a third term, while that doesn't fit with the spirit of the law, that would be what's best for the country, so I'd support him. Is there anyone like that out there? Because everyone else on hold doesn't even think, doesn't support him. Yeah, 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Let me hear from someone who would support it. Because so far that nobody, we already talked to 4 people here. So look, and I'm still working under the assumption that he's throwing a tennis ball to the media. I do secretly have concerns that the intoxicating effect of power, especially being the most powerful guy the world has ever known, I don't think any human being is immune to that temptation. But I can't crawl inside the guy's head. I don't think he's really a dictator in hiding. He already had a chance to put his foot down, and he voluntarily gave up office after one of the shadiest elections of your lifetime in 2020. When 2021 came down in January 2021, he stepped down, didn't he? Well, that's not what a dedicated dictator would do. He also stepped down and didn't hand off the keys to one of his progenies, because you saw Putin do that. Once Putin seized power back in the late 90s, he did pretend to step down after the term limit thing happened, and they let Medvedev be the president for a while. And then after that, he was like, I guess if the Russian people really want me, I'll come back for another term. So we didn't even see that happen in 2021. So we've had a chance for him to repeat that pattern in history that you've seen so many other people break, and he didn't. He didn't. Give him credit there. So if he really is just throwing a tennis ball to get the media distracted so they don't deal with him while he's actually taking care of real business, brilliant move. Brilliant move. If he's saying this because he really wants to be a dictator, terrible move. The truth is going to be somewhere in between. But on the spectrum, I hope it's more toward the tennis ball than the Augustus Caesar side of that spectrum. 800-288-9227 if you want to chime in. Although, I think the one big negative, what James was bringing up, or was that Phil, that said he's his own worst enemy? A lot of people bristle at that, but I think that's a good criticism if you look at the idea of no one can do as much damage to Trump as Trump does. Keith, this is Keith in Fort Worth. You're on WBAP. Would you support Trump for a third term?
Oh, definitely. The number one reason is because 4 years, if he gets out and a Democrat gets in, a Democrat's going to get rid of everything he did, just like how Biden did. So if he runs for a third term and wins, his policies he has in place, he's just it will stay in place. And his policies are making America better as a financial and just everything better.
All right, but what could he do with a third term that he can't do with the last 3 years of this first term? He can solidify his policies over the next 3 years. It's not like he's going to be out of office on Friday.
Right, but he can keep those policies in place.
Do you feel odd? Does it make you feel uneasy that you're breaking the precedent set by George Washington and then codified by the amendment?
A little bit, but Trump is doing what we need to. Trump is doing right by the country.
All right,
he's making our country better, but it's I think he won't be around forever. I get that, but I think if Obama ran against him, or even Michael Obama, he'll wipe the floor with him.
I see what you did there. You're very funny. That's Keith. Coming up next, did you see the viral video of the student fight at a junior high in Bedford? It's pretty awful, and we'll talk about the details around that because, man, if that was your kid, you would be you'd be bouncing off the walls right now. Details on the junior high viral fight coming up next on The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome back to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Would you support Trump if he tried to get a third term? That's the question that we're floating today because the idea was floated over the weekend. And I talked to 4 or 5, and there were more people on hold that were like, nope. I voted for him 3 times already. I wouldn't do it a 4th time. And so I've kind of tried to push those people to the side. I wanted to talk to people who would. Joe in Grapevine, you're on WBAP. Would you support Trump for a 3rd term?
Yes, I would, James. And I'll tell you why. And it all has to do with not just one thing, but multiple issues. As you said, this would be unprecedented. This would be unusual. It's been done before, but it's not the norm. And it can be done if we change things. But as we know, and you one time covered this, and you did an outstanding job. It's been a while back. It was I believe it was you. I could be wrong. And you covered it at one time, the irregularities of the 2020 election. If you would go over that, if you'll recall, when the Capitol was breached, Ted Cruz was fixing to speak about all of the irregularities. What if we now get in there and find, because we have control of everything, and we find out this was coordinated through not only perhaps the Secret Service to some degree, as we know in other areas, but the FBI, the police for the Capitol Police, as well as others that may be involved with this. Recall Dan Bongino. You say, well, he was a talk show host. Well, he's a former, he's a current deputy director of the FBI now. He also had a lot of inside information. What about the backpack bomber?
The pipe bombs.
Dropped all that.
Yeah.
The pipe bomb. Well, James, if we find out that this wasn't just about, was it the Pennsylvania, the irregularities, which was very irregular, and you've gone over this. I wish you would again. But we find out that this involved multiple agencies, multiple different situations. This was coordinated, and to cheat and keep this man, as we know of all the other things that has come out. James, this could be huge. And why did they put that aside when Kamala Harris went to that area, and yet they said nothing about it? And as Dan Bongino had said, he suspected that they used the breach to cover that because they thought that was the plan A. Well, they didn't really expect too much on plan B, but it ended up. And what did we also find out? There were multiple FBI agents trying to entice, trying to encourage these people to do what they did. What if all of this is found out, Chris? I know myself, I thought of that. I was born at night, but not last night. You know, I'm not the most educated man,
right, Joe,
give me a break.
But let me see if I can distill this down a little bit. So you would support Trump for a 3rd term because he was cheated in the 2020 election?
Not just that one thing, but they find
the whole
out
January 6th and everything?
Everything. All of it was just all behind the scenes. How would if this?
Yeah,
was
but
done
you don't like break the constitutional norms and amendments or whatever because you had some bad actors in your political opposition. You still follow the rules. You just send those people to whoever did the chicanery or anything illegal, prosecute them, give them their due process, send them to jail. You don't make a 3rd term president.
No, but they can do it through Congress. They can bring that in.
They can repeal the amendments or whatever, because then that would have to be ratified and go through 3/4 of the state houses. I don't think we could get an amendment through, but if we could, I'm still not comfortable doing it. I'm still not, just to stick it in the eye of people who behave poorly, because we do have elections that we are pretty sure were stolen in the past, and when we go back and relitigate those, we don't say, well, Harry Truman needs to be back in office. I mean, it's the opposite. He stole it from, I forgot who the other Democrat was running in 44 against FDR. But there was an election at the Democrat National Convention where they were counting the votes and Truman was losing. And so the lights went out and someone hit the fire alarm. And so they had to stop. And the next day when they recounted the votes, Harry Truman won. We all kind of agree, that's funny. We all kind of agree that Joe Kennedy strong-armed some of his political and mafia friends and union friends and stole Illinois. And we all kind of look back and I think that's all we're going to get out of, when 2020 is finally uncovered. Because, Joe Biden's going to be gone by then. Donald Trump's probably not going to want to be president by then. And I don't think you break constitutional norms just to stick it in the eye of people who cheated you. You got cheated. I'll give you that. But I don't think I don't think that fixes it.
James, if I may say, I would support him, yes. But I don't think that he would want or do which I didn't get to, the entire time. He could step down. But what this would do was bring to light, instead of sweeping it under the rug, instead of allowing them to ignore it, what it would do, just like he's done in other areas, it would bring it to light. And we need to know this. Look what we're finding out, that, 5 million people that were knowingly illegal were given Social Security numbers,
right?
About 1 million.
No need to start a new topic. All right, Joe. I know what you're saying. I want to take another call, but man, he's so much more hopeful than I am, because I'm all thinking that this is going to be like, I'd mentioned JFK. Here it is, 50, 60 years later. We still don't have the full skinny. We finally got the paperwork on JFK. I figure this is about the time we'll find out for sure the 2020 election truth. But man, what an optimistic dude. Lloyd and McKinney, you're next up on WBAP. Would you support Trump for a third term?
Hey, yeah, I would support it, but I would caution everybody, because setting that precedent would open the door to possibly some bad things. Like, we don't want a Biden third term. The next Biden to run 3 times.
Yeah. Well, we also have the dangerous thing throughout history is anytime, there has been term limits or there has been a cap on power, not to overuse the Rome comparison, but whenever those caps get taken off, they're never putting back on. So we're in a weird homeostasis right now where FDR broke that trend almost 100 years ago. And we came and we actually tried to be one of maybe the first society that once term limits were removed to put them back on. And so I don't know if that's just like a lid on a boiling pot that's shaking right now and is about to get blown off, or if it's actually going to stick this time around, because that would be breaking a classic historical precedent if we can reinstitute term limits and have it stick. All right. Thank you very much, Lloyd McKinney. Good stuff. 800-288-9227. If you have any comebacks to Trump floating the idea of a third term. Coming up next, Brandon Walton's from Texas Scorecard about this terrible viral video of a junior high fight over in Bedford where a kid got knocked out and teachers were a little slow to intervene, and it's just ugly all the way around. Details coming up on The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Welcome to the big show. Brandon Walton's coming on from Texas Scorecard. And Brandon Walton's, we're going to have like a Christmas party or a birthday party or something, because I'm tired of having you on for these horrible stories, but this is just brutal. And we're not clapping for the video here. We're clapping for Brandon Walton's in Texas Scorecard. There was a fight at a junior high in Bedford, and the fight's pretty bad. There's one kid on top of the other one just wailing on him, ground and pound. And what most people seem to be upset about is not only were none of the kids interceding, there were a couple of adults that were just kind of halfway trying to stop the fight. And it ends up worse because when they finally do pull him up, as they pull him up, he decides to stomp on the kid's head and knocks him unconscious. And we're talking about in junior high. What's going on here? Are we pressing charges on this or not, Brandon?
Yeah, I mean, this is crazy. This video, I saw the video going around. It's pretty shocking. It's a pretty bad-looking fight. Like you mentioned, I mean, there's stomping on the head, very, very violent. To my understanding, now some of the details haven't been released because both of the participants are minors and the police protect that information, but essentially both of them have been taken to the Tarrant County Juvenile Justice Center, and they're being dealt with there. But I think the shocking thing in this video, just like you pointed out, is the fact that, okay, you've got some other kids sort of watching it happen. That's not necessarily unexpected, but the adults there don't seem to be doing a lot either. Now, to be fair, we've seen some of these instances of fights and violence in schools from students, and some teachers, some people who work in schools tell me that their hands are sometimes tied by different laws and different rules as far as what they can do to stop these incidents and what they can do to stop them before they happen. And so there's some talk this session about what's being called a teacher's bill of rights, essentially allowing more disciplinary action before things get to this level. Now, would that have stopped this? I don't know, but certainly that's something I have heard from some of the good teachers that we do have working in these schools.
And I feel like very emotional about this, so much so like after I watch the video, I don't even want to comment on it until I calm down. So it's easy for me to pop off here, but like for one of the teachers, he had a coffee mug in his left hand and it had a lid on it or whatever. And so he didn't even put the coffee down. He kind of walked over and with one arm was kind of pushing one of the students like, hey, buddy, why don't we quit this now? Instead of like grabbing him by his shirt and pulling him off. It seemed like these aren't grown-ups. It seems like this would be pretty easy to end a fight for a grown man. And the effort just wasn't there. So am I putting too much on these teachers, or do they have some sort of moral, ethical, legal responsibility to end these or put forth a little more effort?
No, I think that I'd like to think that if I was there, I would have been just like you. I would have stopped this right away. It's hard to imagine sitting around and watching this happen. What I'm saying is that I think that unfortunately cases like these are pretty common. They're becoming more common where you have these violent incidents in schools that are led by the students. And so, obviously when we've been on before, we talk a lot about some of the illegal incidents that we've seen teachers lead in. But there is another side to this, which is that there are students that are involved in these incidents as well. And, both are wrong, but it's even more, I think, shocking when you see adults, administrators, staff, whoever they are at the school, not taking a more active approach in stopping these to begin with.
What are you hearing from people who comment on the story? Because there's so many ways that you could lash out when you see this, but I realize it just doesn't sound logical. Like, hey, how come no one's raising their kids to like intervene when they see someone else getting their face smashed in? It's like I don't know. What are other people saying?
Well, exactly. Or why is it we have video of this incident in the first place, right? And why are they circulating online? We've sort of become a society. This is a broader problem, right? But almost a society where we'd rather film incidents happen and share them than actually do anything to stop them. I think that's kind of its own separate cultural can of worms there and issues that need to be worked through. But I think in the near-term sense, I think what we have to do is we have to make sure that we have and I don't know the full extent of, like I said, this situation, what would have stopped this situation. A lot of the details are not being shared at this time with the public. But I think broadly speaking, when you look at these violent incidents in schools, we need to make sure that we're empowering these administrators, schools, et cetera, to actually be able to stop these. Now, I think the people sitting around there could have done something to stop it. But anything that we could have done to maybe make it to where this fight didn't happen to begin with, I'd have to imagine that in a lot of these cases, these are students that already had disciplinary issues, that already had reason that they probably shouldn't have been in the classroom, probably should have been in school suspension or something like that. You just hate to see videos like this, especially when you're dealing with, I mean, these are, like you said, these are junior high students.
Yeah, they don't look like junior high students. They look like high school students. But the other thing, I might be bugging you later on in the week here at Texas Scorecard. Y'all sent your reporter, who's been on the James Show a few times, Erin Anderson. She's at today's Collin County Commissioners Court meeting where County Judge Chris Hill's having a public hearing about the Epic City, the Sharia city that's proposed for East Collin County. And when I was reading your breakdown, the event happened this morning. I don't even know if it's over yet, so I'm looking forward to your write-up either later today or tomorrow. But I didn't realize that this was something that was happening in other areas, in our area. There's one in Blue Ridge. There's another one. Mm-hmm. Where was that other one? Y'all had a few. Aubrey. Yeah. There's a McKinney Islamic Association was trying to rezone some acres last year on Virginia Parkway. So this isn't like a one-off. This is a dedicated pattern where they're trying in several places to make Sharia cities all of a sudden. Has this always been going on, or they just start all these projects within the recent time?
A lot of these projects seem pretty recent. Part of it just due to, I'd say, the influx and change of demographics in the area, specifically up in Collin County, that kind of north part of the Metroplex where a lot of these are being proposed. But, at the same time, it's been very interesting. Just over the past week, we've seen, I think, 4 or 5 different investigations launched into the East Plano Islamic Center, the group behind this proposed development. Just today, Governor Abbott called on the Texas Rangers to investigate. And so, I think that there's potentially some shady practices going on with this. Hopefully we'll learn more. I believe the meeting is ongoing. Aaron's at the meeting right now following it. I believe it's still ongoing, and we'll see what comes out of this commissioners meeting. But I hope we get some more information on this because I have heard from so many folks who live up there that are concerned and that want answers.
Well, thank you very much for sending a reporter out there and keeping us abreast of all these other things that a lot of times the media just likes to ignore for convenience sake. Brandon Waltons, Texas Scorecard. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. All
right. Find his work, TexasScorecard.com. And I'll probably be reading from him tomorrow or the next day about what the results of this epic meeting that's happening in Collin County right now. But I want to ask you, you're a parent. What would you do if that was your kid with some other bigger kid on top of him, beating the snot out of him, pounding his face in while all the kids stand around? Then a couple of teachers just kind of lackadaisical, just very lazy in their attempt to break it up, and it ends up with your kid getting his head stomped into the concrete and him getting knocked unconscious. What would you do? Would you go have a chat with the other kids' fathers? Would you go have a chat with the teachers? Would you have a message for all the parents of the kids who sat around and watched your kid get his face pounded into the sidewalk? Would you sue the school? Would you have some words for the principal? What would you do? Because I don't know what I would do. I would go nuts if that was me. I don't know. I don't advocate the breaking of laws, but I'd be hard pressed to not. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I'll tell you what I do next on the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey, sports fans. James Parker here for the Prize Picks app. I discovered something else on Prize Picks. You go and you look at your favorite Mavericks, and then if you want to see how the predictions have fared in the last 5 games, just tap on that little mini picture they have in the square. It'll pull up a whole window of stats, and it'll show you in the last 5 games on this statistic. Like when I like the total points. Did he beat this in the last 5 games? So the statistic for tonight at 7:30, Anthony Davis, 36.5. That's points plus rebounds plus assists. You'll see he's only broken that number once in the last 5 games. Now, I'm not saying that's a sure shot, but look, this is a game of skill, my friend, and they're giving you all kinds of tools for you to make a little bit more fun out of the sports you're already watching. It works for the Final Four coming up too. So download the Prize Picks app and play with our money. Use promo code WBAP. You get $50 with your first $5 play. Download Prize Picks. Use promo code WBAP. Get that $50 with your first $5 game. Turn it into some real money and thank me later. Prize Picks. Run your game. Hey there, welcome to the James Show. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. If you haven't seen the fight, the viral video of the fight from some junior high in Bedford, it's pretty brutal. It'll kind of ruin your day. If you're in a good mood, it'll temper that a little bit. And I don't know, I'm a parent, so immediately I start thinking, what if that was my kid? However, I also try and put myself in like a different pair of shoes here. Like, what if this was old James before I had kids? Well, then I would be thinking, well, what if that was me in that fight and the teachers didn't do much or the other students just stood around? And then I'm like, well, that doesn't have to be very hypothetical. I know I sound like a nice guy now, but I kind of got into quite a few fights when I was growing up. Got into a few fights in junior high. And the level of brutality here is past that. I think there was only there was two fights in high school where I saw someone get knocked unconscious even for a second. So I never saw anyone get knocked unconscious in junior high. Like, I saw a guy take a real big hit on the football field and took him a few seconds to wake up, but nothing like this. So I think it's the level of brutality that seizes you in this one, coupled with the inaction of not just the kids, because that's kind of excusable and they didn't know it was going to end like that, but really the adults. And so now, like, if that is your kid, what do you do? What's the right reaction? Because I've never crossed that before. I have 4 kids. Yeah, a couple of them have been in a fight, but nothing nearly like this. And so I never had the instance where I had to go confront another parent or go confront. I don't know, man. Like, your visceral reaction, if you're a parent, is to go knock that kid off, right? But now you can't do that. I wouldn't advocate doing that. That's a terrible visceral reaction to have. So I'm not endorsing it or glorifying it or anything. I'm just saying, like, your animal instincts are to go do something about whoever just beat up your kid, regardless of their demographics. So what would you do if that was your kid? 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Here's what I think after I calmed down and had a day to think about it and got to sleep on it. I would have a talk with both of those teachers. I would have a talk with the principal. I would have a talk with both that kid and that kid's parents, especially the dad, if there's a dad in the picture. And I think I could cut it off at that. I think that would at least make me feel better. And maybe, like, this won't happen. Next time this happens, we'll get a better result. I'm not sure about this. You know, I'm so cocksure about half the stuff I talk about on the show, not this one. This is another James in Rockwall. What would you do if this was your kid in the Bedford junior high fight video?
Well, I would definitely, as a parent, want, the punishment to be dealt out accordingly as it needs to be done, charges, whatever needs to be done, to the students or to the parties involved. But I'm actually a teacher, and I could shed a little light on, what teachers have to deal with these. We're actually trained to, like, intervene very little in fights like this, especially if they break out, the more violent they are. I've had friends fired because they broke up a fight in a school. So it's almost one of those things where you don't know exactly what to do. You're just trying to look out for the kids that are involved and, just protect who's in the room. You move kids away and you find a safe opening to try and break it apart because, you don't want to lose your job over, trying to stop 2 kids from fighting each other.
Well, do I sound like a jerk when I was like, you got to just go over there and grab that kid by his shirt and pull him off? It's just a kid. You can stop him. You're a grown man. You outweigh him by like 100 pounds. You could have ended this in a second. Is that just easier said than done?
Yes, on pencil and paper, absolutely. Yeah. But everybody has that reaction, that gut feeling reaction. Like, once you see it break out, your instant reaction is, okay, I got to stop this right now. But then you have to think, okay, how am I going to stop them? Do I need to wait for the SRO? Do I need to, when's the right opportune moment where I'm not going to harm a kid, pulling a kid off versus, risking myself as well. And so it's just one of those gut calls that people have to take. But there's really nothing you can do in a matter of 15 seconds.
Is that a baby? You got a baby over there?
Yeah, my kid's talking to me.
That's adorable. All right. Well, thanks for having a cute background noise. Thank you, James and Rockwall. I appreciate your perspective on this one. Let's go to Glenn, I believe. He's been there for the longest. This is Glenn calling from all the way down in Killeen. Hey, Glenn, thanks for calling WBAP. What would you do?
I think that both the teachers or whoever was there, the teachers should be either reprimanded or fired. And back when we were fighting, when I was a kid like you, in high school, we fought. When somebody was getting the best of somebody, we broke it up.
Right.
The fight is won. You won. You're done. There's no need stomping the guy's head into the ground. So
yeah. So what do we do about that? Because there's no school policy or law you could pass to fix that. Do I just
should be charged with full assault?
Hey, parents of the HEB, or really any parents who have kids in high school, teach your sons to break up fights, especially when they get out of hand and one-sided.
That's what we did.
Let's not just have. Because we did the instant circle of spectators whenever a fight would break out.
Yeah,
like it was
exactly.
it was all just in our dumb hick brains, like our instincts. And you're right. The second someone got knocked down, or really the appearance of blood showed up because someone would get a bloody nose.
Some guy won. We broke it up.
Well, and it's also like in Dazed and Confused when the guy is theorizing about the bully that picks on him. He's like, look, man, if I just go up to him at the party, I punch him. Sure, I'll get the first lick in, and there might be a fight, but the herd will break it up almost immediately. And they didn't. They just watched him get pegged because that's not based on nothing. All right. Dazed and Confused reference. You get bonus points for that. What would you do if it was your kid on that Bedford Junior High fight video? 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome. It's the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Jean-Jacques Taylor joins the James Show to give you a sports report. But James, this is the sports station. I know, but on WBAP, we're going to give you the sports that you need to know without having to watch all those games. So Jean-Jacques Taylor, welcome back to the James Show. And let's start with the biggest headline is March Madness. We're down to the Final Four. And for the second time in history, all one seeds. What does the casual sports fan need to know about this?
That this should be some of the best basketball you've seen all year, because a guy named Ken Pomeroy has been rating college basketball teams for probably more than 30 years. And up until a few years ago, they used to use his ratings to determine the seeds in the NCAA tournament. Well, these four teams in the Final Four this year have four of the highest rankings of all time on his board. So basically, these are four of the best college basketball teams in NCAA history. And so, it doesn't really get any better than that. Big on big, good on good. It should be great.
Well, and you got the legacy team in there, Duke. You got the locals somewhat with Houston. And then what else? We got Auburn and Florida. So
we ain't claiming Houston and Dallas. Come on, man.
Wow, it's close. It's the closest thing we've got.
We don't root for the Astros. We don't root for the Texans.
I do root for the Texans. I have to root for.
I gotta slap you on the wrist for that, dog.
Jean-Jacques, they named the team after me. I'm a Texan. They named it after me. I feel some sort of responsibility. Okay, so
nah, man. You can ride with Kelvin Sampson and some of the players, but just to watch Houston win, it's hard to get down with that.
Well, I was a huge Deshaun Watson fan. That couldn't go wrong. I was playing. So let's talk about the big guys. In Dallas, we also have the Mavericks. Are they in the playoffs, or are they done, or what?
The Mavericks will either be the 9th seed, the 10th seed, or not in the playoffs. They got a game and a half lead over Sacramento for the 10th spot. They're not going to. They really have no chance to get up to 7 or 8. So. But man, they traded Luka. It's kind of a lost season. I will say this. I told a friend of mine this the other day. I don't think Jason Kidd has got enough credit for how hard this team has played, despite all the distractions. Not just the Luka trade, but the injuries.
Ton of injuries, yeah.
Ridiculous. And now they're not a team. Okay, they're not a good team right now because they're missing an all-star caliber player in Kyrie Irving. But they're going to get Gafford back. They're going to get Lively back. They're going to have Anthony Davis. And they're not necessarily a team that you want to deal with because they got a lot of height, a lot of athleticism, a lot of rim protection, and they play hard. And so even if they're in the play-in tournament, I expect them to be a tough out. And I think Jason Kidd's done a heck of a job given all the things his team's had to endure this year.
All right, what about the Stars? They seem to be riding high on their wave from last year and continuing it, unlike the Mavericks. Their playoff chances. What are they, the top seed?
No, they are 4 points behind Winnipeg last I checked, which was a couple of days ago. The Stars are 5-0-2 in their last 7 games, despite playing good but not great hockey. But let's face it, man, for the Stars, it's really a couple busts. You know what I mean? They got a great team. Winnipeg has a great team. They're probably going to face Colorado in the first round. There are no freebies. They're going to have to earn it. But when they added Ratnan a couple of weeks ago, he's one of the elite players in the league. They have everything they need to win. It's not going to be easy, but they're capable of winning the cup just like they were last year.
So let's talk about the Cowboys. Have we been making any good moves in the offseason?
They signed Osa Odigizua a couple of weeks ago. Michael Parsons wants a $200 million deal. He's going to get it. It's just a matter of how long it takes them to get it. The draft is coming up in a few weeks, I think at the end of the month. And so it's kind of all quiet on the Cowboys front right now.
I hear you. All right, then the Rangers, they won the series 2 years ago. They laid an egg last season. What are they doing this season, Jean-Jacques?
Off to a really good start, 3-1 against a really good Boston team. Jacob deGrom is really the key to the season to me. If he can he hadn't pitched more than 92 innings since 2019. If he can give them 18 starts and maybe 120, 130 innings, they'll have a chance to get to the playoffs. And I'm just here to tell you, if they got Eovaldi and a healthy deGrom on their rotation, there's nobody who wants to deal with them in the playoffs because they're gonna be able to take care of business.
All right, Jean-Jacques Taylor, how can they find your work outside of WBAP?
You can always check me out at jjtmediagroup.com.
Thank you very much, Jean-Jacques Taylor, Dallas media legend. All right, coming up next, I don't know what I think about. I mean, I know what I think about this, but it's well intended. West Virginia has outlawed a handful of food dyes from school lunches, and it's kind of in line with what Robert F. Kennedy wants to do and outlawing like red number 5 or whatever it is. Come on, man. If we're trying to make the country healthy again, we're starting with food dyes. What do you think about that? Details coming up on The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome back to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Yeah, let's go. Happy Monday. So we had MAGA, now we have MAHA. Are you familiar with this? Make America Healthy Again. This is the Robert F. Kennedy wing of the new MAGA administration in Trump 2.0. He's now Director of Health and Human Services, and he's spoken out against all kinds of additives in food, stuff that, none of this bothers me. Like, you have artificial dyes in food. Oh no, the humanity. How will we recover? People gripe about MSG, monosodium glutamate. Oh no, how will we ever recover? But this goes beyond just advice when it turns into law. And so I get a little concerned here when we have an RFK in DC who wants to try and control your diet from, government powers. And West Virginia has banned 7 harmful food dyes in school lunches. I mean, they say harmful in the title. Are they? Are they harmful? Says who? And I'm not saying that if you had a diet consisting entirely of red number 5 that you wouldn't have some negative side effects to it. But of all the problems, of all the health issues affecting our kids, I don't think food dyes are in the top 100. Because if the problem of kids being unhealthy is real, and it's so real, we've just got to do something about it. We've got to start taking away freedoms and adding in restrictions and not letting them have the choice over, not letting schools choose what they serve kids, not letting kids choose what they eat, not even letting parents have that option. No, it's so damn unhealthy. We've got to ban it. All right, listen, let's just go through why I think this is just whizzing in the wind here. Number one, in order to have a healthy lifestyle, you have to get just really 3 things: proper exercise, proper sleep, proper diet. Food dyes make 0 difference in those 3 things. If you have those 3 things locked down, it's almost impossible to be unhealthy. I mean, you'd have to live under power lines or something. So proper sleep, not much of an issue. Nothing much we could do about that. Got it. Sure, we could do better, whatever. But there's not an epidemic of insomnia that's making kids weak, fat, and dumb, so we don't even need to address sleep. I say the exercise part is the biggest culprit we need to tackle. Because even if you have a so-so diet or a bad diet and you still exercise, you still get in your cardio, you still do resistance training, you still lift heavy weights, you're going to be in pretty damn good shape. You're not going to have like a heart attack, or you're not going to be falling backwards into type 2 diabetes. But we're not dealing with sleep or exercise here. We're dealing with the diet aspect of health. So let's look at the diet part, because it's a legit concern. Some kids eat good, but when we talk about kids eating a bad diet, we're not talking about the food dyes. We're talking about too much sugar, too much fat, too much carbs, empty carbs, maybe too much processed food, maybe too little protein. And these restrictions have nothing to do to help that. You ban these food dyes. Is the big kid going to start eating less fat? Is the skinny kid going to start eating more protein? Is it going to have any effect on it whatsoever? Because we know it's not going to have any effect on sleep or exercise. So if it's not having a real effect on the diet, what are we doing? What's the point? I've seen a lot of people die, and I've had to cover it as a member of the media here, and on no one's death certificate did it say yellow number 6. That hasn't happened in my observation. Maybe it's happened somewhere in human history and I just missed it. But, on top of that, you have seen this before. We've actually done this experiment. Do you remember? Here, let's get in the Wayback Machine here. We'll go all the way back to when we were kids. And there was a few years there when there was no red M&Ms. You remember when the red M&M was outlawed? Yeah, you would get a pack of M&Ms and it would have all of them but the red in there. It would still have the blue, it would still have the green. Orange okay, green okay, brown okay. Just not the red. The red's evil. So when we got rid of the red M&Ms and the red food dye, did children get more healthy? No, actually during that span coincides with the trend line of us getting fatter and less healthy as kids. So no, if anything, there's no causation or correlation you even want to try and peg on that, because it was a huge embarrassing failure if you did. But then when the M&Ms the red M&Ms returned. Is there a noticeable change in the trend line of any of these health metrics of exercise or diet or obesity or diabetes or weight or hypertension or anything? No, nothing. It's a non-factor. So why are we doing it if it has a zero effect on the trend lines of our kids' health? And I asked that as an open-ended question. I don't know why we do this. I don't know why we focus on this. I mean, they talk about how we gotta get rid of these things that are artificial. Okay, artificial what? Why do we assume artificial is bad? Why do you make that assumption that I can see artificial can be bad, but some of the most toxic poisons on the planet are natural, air quotes, natural. Cobra venom is natural. You don't want to put it in your M&Ms. You got these people are griping about microplastics. You have microplastics in some of your cells. Okay, I feel fine. What's the negative correlation to that? Well, it's infiltrating your body and it's in every part of all of our bodies. Yeah, but what's the negative part of that? Well, it's not natural. Well, I know it's not natural, but I don't get it. I really don't. Going after food dyes. This is what you're doing to make kids healthy? Here's what you need to do to make them get healthy. Move! Play a sport. Work out. Oh, but there's no government power that you can seize. But with that approach, James, this would have to be independent decision-making improved on the individual level. Donna in Pennsylvania. You're on WBAP. What do you think?
Hello. I have a nephew that was born addicted to drugs. He's adopted.
Yikes. Okay.
And red dye 40 makes him extremely angry. If they watch what he eats and he doesn't get any of that, he's fine. But the yellow dye also affects him.
Okay, so are you saying that that's an excuse why we should ban it, or that's an excuse why we should be cautious of it because it can have an effect on behavior?
Well, if it is there and there's not that many people aware of what it does to children, then yes, it should be banned because let's face it, there are women out there that don't care what they're giving to their child. And if you're going to eat Skittles and things like that, where you're going to get those dyes, and there are good natural dyes out there that can be used.
Is this the one that comes from bug guts? Is the red dye where they have to squish some bug and get some pigment out of its butt?
I don't know whether it is or not. I just know it's red dye 40.
Yeah, because I think it might be red dye 5 that's the bug one, and it's so gross. Yeah. But I'm like, well, it's natural. Isn't that good? You're eating the back end of some squishy beetle. All right. Well, thank you very much for that perspective, Donna in Pennsylvania. Good luck with the nephew. That's a terrible story to start with. Way to bring us all down. What do you think? 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Homeowners, one of the most dangerous games you can play is procrastination roulette. Don't do it. Don't do it. I did that with my car the other day. The check engine light came on, and I didn't go get it checked out. I just ignored it until it went off. Oh, good. The car fixed itself. That's fantastic. Don't do that with your house, though. It's not going to work out well. James Parker here for Blue Ribbon Roofing. If you ignore the suspicion that there may be something wrong with your roof, if you're wrong, you are going to pay dearly for it later. You're going to have not just to fix your roof, you're going to have to fix pretty much everything that it leaked onto. There may be some expensive appliances in there. There may be some electrical work in there. You may double, triple, quadruple, exponentially explode the cost of repairs if you don't get in front of a roof problem immediately. Here's the good news. There's your problem. Here's your solution. If you go to blueribbondfw.com, you can get a free inspection right now. And if everything's fine, they'll give you a high five and you can put your head on the pillow tonight and go to bed and not worry about it. But if there is an issue, then we'll talk about solutions. Maybe it's just a patch. Maybe you need a whole roof. And if you need help with the insurance, they're good about that too. Why? Because they're a local family company. John and Tish started this 31 years ago. Their adult son, Trevor, is now working in the day-to-day operations. And you can go, not just trust me or Casey or Bob over on the ticket. You can go read the hundreds of 5-star reviews they've gotten from customers on Google. So Blue Ribbon DFW gets you the free inspection. If you mention you heard it on the James Show, you get a free ridge vent ventilation upgrade if you do need a new roof. So go to blueribbondfw.com. blueribbondfw.com. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. I know I'm not a doctor, but I don't get why there's a push here to ban food dyes. West Virginia has now banned 7 of them from school lunches. RFK loves it, and I suspect he wants to do the same thing for the rest of us. Is that cool with you? Let's ask James and Keller. Ooh, another James. What do you think about the banning of certain food dyes, sir?
I appreciate you taking my call, James. Yeah, I think that it probably has more to do with not necessarily you considering childhood obesity and hypertension and so forth like that. I think that it's more concerned with cancer-causing agents. And now I would suggest we obviously don't know what is causing the cancer. As any scientist would know, you want to eliminate as many variables as possible in order to find out, what culprits are triggered. But it's just more an overall sense of just trying to clean everything up from the beginning, getting rid of, whether you're looking at dyes or any other preservatives. Obviously, as you're aware, the European nutrition items there are much cleaner and so forth. And so you could say, well, what benefit is that causing by eliminating those things? I think it's kind of like just chipping away at the national debt. You don't just say we're, until we can eliminate it all, we're not going to eliminate any of it. Doge is going in and chipping away and pulling things out that make any potential difference. And I would suggest that the dyes themselves are a contributing factor. Yet the research is kind of unknown, but anyone of a sound mind would probably assume that something that's unnatural or processed, with the rise of cancer rates that we've seen over the last 40 years, you would begin to wonder, where is that coming from? So, whether that's environmental factors or dyes or
right, but how come you don't,
or whatever?
Why not err on the side of freedom? Why not err on the side of, well, we don't know if it necessarily has a negative health effect, so we're going to allow the freedom to reign in the meantime, versus we don't know if this is harmful, so we're going to restrict your freedom to choose your own food dyes.
I agree with that completely. I would just suggest that maybe the alternative to be able to maintain those liberties and freedoms would be to make.
Yeah, I don't like that either. Anytime, look, I, even before COVID, I wasn't on that train, but after COVID, there's no one that can knock me off this train. I don't care if people think it's good for me or not. I don't care if they think it would be healthier for me if they restricted some of my freedoms. I'm still against it. We're allowed to do unhealthy things all day, every day. We still sell tobacco. We still sell bourbon. We still sell high fructose corn syrup. We still let people get sunburns, and that contributes to skin cancer. So I'll just err on the side of freedom. And I think, like, generally speaking, I understand, like, the people that are doing this think that they're doing the right thing, but the people during COVID thought that they were doing the right thing. And we've got a lot of negative consequences from that. Thank you, James. Let's ask other James in Mesquite. You're on WBAP. What do you think?
Hey, to piggyback on what that last caller said, I agree with you, James, that yes, freedom's great, but the problem we have right now, our entire supply is poison. It's almost impossible to.
I'm sorry, you just stepped into something, because you sound like my wife and her friends, dude. They think all this processed food is poison, and
it's terrible.
It's not terrible. We're living longer than ever. As long as we don't eat with a shovel, we're healthier than ever. And you can take all the food dyes out of all the kids' lunches, and they're still going to be fat and lazy, or the ones that were fat and lazy are still going to be fat and lazy afterwards. This is not the solution even to a health problem.
How do you know?
How do I know? Because
what evidence do you have? Everything you've eaten and that I've eaten in my entire life has been processed, ultra processed. It started in the 80s or whenever they started doing all those.
Try this experiment, James. Go back and look at baseball players from 100 years ago. The ones that had like Whitey Ford or Babe Ruth or whatever. And look at him and notice that this guy's 26, but he looks like he's 50 today. Look what Wilford Brimley looked like in 1981, and look what Tom Cruise looks like now. We are healthier than ever if we want to be. For the people that want to go out and eat with a shovel and look like Grimace from the Happy Meal box, yeah, they're Walmart's full of them. They're all scooting around.
That's a bad comparison. Tom Cruise looks how he looks because of what he has access to. The guys from back in the day you're talking about, they lived a different life. They weren't multimillionaires. They still had full-time jobs. And they went and played baseball at the same time.
I know, and they fell over, and they fell over dead at 62. I'm just saying, like, I think there's a lot of good evidence that our diet is not the problem, especially compared to generations past. Thank you very much, James. All right, let's move on to something that affects our pocketbooks. Spencer McGowan, host of Net Worth Radio, back on the James Show. Welcome back, Spencer. So we have markets that were convulsing, and they haven't had a very good start to the year. Granted, we had a pretty good day today. How concerned are you over at Net Worth Radio? Do you feel that the GDP is contracting? Will it last for 2 consecutive quarters and thus trip a legal recession? Well, I have people that gripe about how the market's doing and it's killing my 401k. And generally speaking, if you're not happy with how your IRA or 401k or your investments have done in the last couple of months, you're probably overweighted in stocks. Is that too simple for you, Spencer? All right. So what are y'all talking about on Net Worth Radio this weekend? I love it. Bring more Melee references on future James shows, Spencer McGowan. Appreciate it, sir. All right. You can find him Net Worth Radio, Spencer McGowan, also the McGowan Group over at the Crescent, walking distance from here. All right, we are going to play Dead or Alive next on the James Show, so stick around. You have a chance. If you want to play, call in and try and win some tickets. You do that now. We're playing for the tickets to the I Want My 80s tour. Rick Springfield is going to be there. John Waite, Wang Chung, Paul Young. Go to livenation.com or call in right now to play Dead or Alive next, and I have it on 60s actresses. 60s actresses is your category today. That's coming up on The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. James Parker here for Home Marketing Services with Bob Lavelle. Bob, how's the market looking for houses? We just talked with Spencer about how the market's looking for stocks. It's a mess. Are houses any better?
You know, it is. Matter of fact, last week we took out 3 of your listeners that all became homeowners. And my favorite one, a lady that, you know, she was so desperate to be in a home, been renting for 20 years. She's a big listener on your program. She was so nervous when she came in. She was even more nervous when she found her house that she wanted, that we described. She found it perfect. But, you know, she was so nervous still, thinking, even though she's going to close on her house in about 6 weeks, she still can't believe that she's going to get a house. She's never owned a house in her life, and she's 50.
I remember, look, the first time you get in a house, you're like a week later. Are they going to come take the keys from me because they found something wrong with my paperwork or something? It's almost like a dream come true, Bob.
It is. And I think what's really neat about this lady, she has a 24-year-old son, and she and the son are buying the house together. So I love our doubles like that. We've, you know, the mother and son buying, sisters buying, the twins buying, I don't think there's anything we haven't quite hit yet.
All right. If you want to get in a home, get out of the rent race, start building equity for yourself. Call Bob Lavelle at Home Marketing Services, 972-392-9595, 972-392-9595. Go to blessyourheart.com or 972-392-9595. All right. Thanks again, Bob.
Thank you, James.
Well, hey there. Welcome back to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, and now on FM at 93.3. Welcome back to the big show. Well, let's go ahead and jump right into it. We're going to play Dead or Alive. Thank you, Mr. Jovi. Welcome to Dead or Alive. This is the game show on the James Show where I give you 10 celebrities. You have to tell me if they are dead or alive. We usually do a category. Today's category is 60s actresses who had a hit in the 60s, whether it's TV or film. We're not going to narrow it down. But the prize on the line today, 2 tickets to the I Want My 80s tour featuring Rick Springfield. It's going to be at Music Hall, Fair Park, July 20th. Special guests, John Waite, Wang Chung, and Paul Young. Get tickets and information at livenation.com. But I'm going to try and give away a pair right now. Actually, I know I'm going to give away a pair right now because we have a bunch of people on hold. Let's start with Lisa in the Colony. That sounds familiar. Have you played before?
Yes.
Has it been more than 90 days?
I think so.
I don't remember her winning. I just remember her. Did you win or did you just play?
No, I won tickets to Voice to Men, but
I think I might have to skip you, Lisa. I think that was in the last 90 days.
Give me. Thank you.
Sorry about that. Just there's rules. We got to follow rules. I hate rules. Art and Alan, guess what? Now you get to be first up.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, that's easy enough. How confident are you in your knowledge of 60s actresses?
Not confident at all.
Okay. Well, you probably won't last long then. Let's start off with Raquel Welch, dead or alive?
Alive.
Oh, Art. Yeah, you're right. You don't know what you're talking about. She's dead, sir. Well, you get points for honesty. No, don't hang up. Maybe we'll cycle back around if everyone else is equally inept. You might get a second chance. This is Brent and Lake Weatherford. You're on Dead or Alive. You ready?
You bet, buddy.
And Margaret, dead or alive?
Oh, very alive.
Very alive. Sophia Loren.
She's smoking hot. Yeah, Sophia, she's still alive, too.
You have any comment about her appearance?
Man.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Bridget Bardot, dead or alive?
She's alive.
How do you know all this? Audrey Hepburn, dead or alive?
Uh-oh. Let's see here. I think she's dead.
She is dead. Died in 1993. Just keeping you on your toes. Jane Mansfield, Highland Park graduate, by the way. Jane Mansfield.
Well, she got decapitated in a car wreck down in Louisiana.
We didn't have to be that. Yeah, in Slidell. We didn't have to be that specific. In 1967, yeah, she's dead. She's been dead. Angie Dickinson, dead or alive? Do you know her? She was in like Rio Bravo and a few other things.
Oh, my gosh. I think she's alive.
She is alive, 93 years old. The next one, her name's Catherine Ross. You know her from The Graduate and also Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. That Catherine Ross. Is she dead or alive?
Well, she was married 3 or 4 times before she married her current husband. She's definitely alive and gorgeous.
What are you, her biographer? You're creeping me out, Brent. All right, let's keep going. Elizabeth Taylor, dead or alive?
Oh, she's dead.
Yeah, died in, 2011? All right, and finally, you went on a hell of a run here, Brent. Tina Louise, she's Ginger from Gilligan's Island, dead or alive?
Tina Louise. Oh, well, she's still alive.
There you go. My God. Brent went nuts. 9 in a row. Well done, sir. You're not Googling it right there quick, are you?
I'm not that smart. I'm 73. I can't even order anything off Amazon, man.
All right. Well, your brain still works just fine if you got 9 in a row. Congratulations, sir. You've just won 2 tickets to the I Want My 80s tour with Rick Springfield, Wang Chung, John Waite. It's all happening July 20th, Music Hall at Fair Park. Thank you very much, Brent.
All right, buddy.
All right, and thank you. This has been Dead or Alive. And behind the scenes, you can see everyone hanging up that's sitting on hold. I love that part. All right. For my next little trick here, I just want to play a viral video. Can we do this one? I found this so delicious. Some guy keyed a swastika in the side of a Cybertruck, but the Cybertruck was on Sentry mode, so the owner recorded it. Instead of turning him into the cops, he put it on Facebook. The internet found out who he was. He goes to his house and says, I want you to pay for the damages and apologize. And listen to this little worm try and squeeze out of it, this little Tesla vandal, after he gets busted.
Free service.
Free service. How about you pay for the repairs? Write a check. You just bought a Tesla.
I can wipe it off
No,
with a towel.
no,
It's not
no.
a key.
It is a
It was
hate crime,
it was
sir.
a crayon.
It is a hate crime.
Listen,
Did you write a swastika on there?
I'm sorry you're upset.
Did you write a swastika?
It didn't even work. Apparently it doesn't work.
Did you write a
The crayons
swastika
don't
on
work.
the? It's a key, sir. We see it on the video.
It's not a key.
Did you? Is it a swastika?
I was probably putting my keys in my pocket.
Is it a swastika?
Have you looked at your car?
Is it a swastika?
Is there a key
yes.
mark?
Is it
It's
a
not-
swastika?
that's
It's at the
impossible.
police right now. It's being fingerprinted.
What do you mean it's being fingerprinted?
Because they're trying to track you down. Thankfully, Facebook tracked you down. So your business, your freaking livelihood, everything now,
Listen.
because you chose to write so to tell Facebook that you're sorry for writing a swastika on a Tesla.
Listen, I said I'm sorry.
For what?
And I
For what?
apologize.
For what?
I have nothing against
For
your
what?
car, and I have nothing against you.
Yes, you
So
do.
why would you write a swastika on a Tesla?
Obviously, I have something against Elon Musk, but that's not the
So
way
Elon
to
Musk
show my...
owns that car because
No,
it was
he
bought
owns
and
the
paid
company.
for. It was bought and paid for a long time
That's
ago.
why it's misguided, and obviously, I did not intend to do this.
Oh my God, I love 2025. Your car can catch the people who vandalize it, tattle on them. You can throw it online. Strangers will show up and let you know who this guy is and where you can find him. And then you can go with just the thing that's hanging out in your pocket, put him on the spot and try and get him to apologize to the world. Oh God, I love 2025. Man, what are we going to be doing in 10 years from now? Or is the robots going to be doing this for us? This is great. You're listening to The James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. There was a lady at one of the Tesla takedown protests over the weekend that had a video I think you'd be interested in seeing, but you don't really have to see it. I can describe it to you. She looks just like if you asked an AI to make a generic photo of a woman in her 50s. She's not tall, she's not short, she's not fat, she's not skinny. Her hair's kind of colors, kind of gray. She looks so generic, which is perfect. You know, you don't have any pre-existing bias toward her. But you're not going to like what she's holding in her hand. In her hand, she has a chain, like, I don't know, looks kind of like an old dog leash, really. And at the bottom of the chain is a cardboard cutout of Donald Trump. And the chain's wrapped around his neck. And so she's like, hey, we're New Yorkers. We're supposed to do some real protesting. Hey, what are you going to do? What do you forget about it? Well, however they talk. She's talking about, let's go hang this effigy of Trump. Now, I remember it wasn't that long ago that a fleet of FBI agents, what was it, like 4 FBI agents, were sent to investigate the perceived noose that was on the garage door pull down for Bubba Wallace's NASCAR garage. Now, I say perceived noose because I guess technically the knot was a noose, but the size of the loop, you could barely fit your thumb in. No one who saw that really thought it was a noose meant to intimidate people. But hey, the demand for racism far outstrips the supply, so we'll take what we can get. However, how does this get ignored? Listen to this lady. Don't worry, I bleeped it.
There should be an effigy on every street corner. We're New Yorkers. Let's protest like New Yorkers. This maggot hates us. He hates us. Let's hang him high and make pictures. It's the only thing that gets that piece of that lardon, lardon sitting in our White House. Let's hang this high. Who wants to hang this effigy? Who wants to? We're New York.
Where's the wild condemnations all over media for people to either embrace that or condemn it or condone it? Where's the news article? Where's one? Where's the fleet of FBI agents? We have a picture, and it's a full color picture. It's not like she took a placemat sized picture and put a chain around it. It's a full size, like 5 foot tall cardboard cutout of Donald Trump. It's got a chain around its neck, new style, and she's just dragging it around. Like at the end when you hear her voice kind of trailing off, she just started walking down the sidewalk, dragging her little Trump effigy behind him. And no, I don't really think that this is a newsworthy story, but I also didn't think Bubba Wallace's pull down garage tie was a newsworthy story. However, if Bubba Wallace's was, how come this isn't? And you know why? The media is not going to report on their political allies looking like crazy people. Do you think you're on the right side for the 20, maybe 30% of people who are listening who aren't sure what side of the aisle you're on? Are you sure on the side that's just dragging around the president with a chain around his neck, demanding effigies? You can go ahead and call in and be like, well, they did that to Mike Pence on January 6th. I condemn them. They're terrible people. Whoever did that, boo. They stink. It was all over the news, though. It got coverage. You heard about it. Did you hear about this one? Why not? Doesn't that bother you? So that was a fun little takeaway there. I hope she at least gets a visit from the Secret Service. But yeah, this has been repeated over and over in dozens of towns all weekend. Real hate speech, real threats of violence, real nooses, real effigies, real hangings. You're still the good guys? You sure you're the good guys? You sure you're not the bad guys? All right, coming up, I can almost say later this month because it's almost April, but we have WeatherCon coming back for this year. The 2025 WeatherCon is going to be brought to you by Blue Ribbon Roofing. And if you're new to the station, we do this every year. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. We get together and we usually rope in some TV meteorologists as well. This year it's going to be Saturday morning, April 26th at the Frontiers of Flight Museum. You're going to come out there. It starts at 9:30, but you can really get there 9:30, 10:30-ish, and come hang out. There's going to be a bunch of booths from other people who are affiliated with the radio station, but also some people who aren't, who are just into weather. Some people who are into educational programs for kids and homeschooling kids, and there will be a scientist there in a jacket to do demonstrations for the kiddos, like live little experiments. It's a family thing, and it's definitely for people who listen to WBAP, who love weather, and kids. There's a lot of kid stuff there. That was one thing that shocked me about it when I went last year, is how much of it was kid-centric. And I know, because I got kids, how hard it is to find something intelligent and local and science-related that's not dorky, that's still cool. And if nothing else, you can come out and see one of the space capsules from the Apollo mission at Frontiers of Flight Museum. Here's the deal. It's free. You can't go to the Frontiers of Flight Museum for free without going to WeatherCon that I know about. So it's worth it just to get in and see the museum. But I'm going to be there. Brad Barton will be there. Hal J should be there. And some other meteorologists giving demonstrations. It's a good time. WeatherCon 2025 brought to you by Blue Ribbon Roofing and WBAP. Stick around. Coming up next, The Mark Levin Show. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.